What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Pete's Carport, and welcome to another video of bodywork on the sc300. I promise you this one is going to be the most fun because we're going to finish off 99% of what needs to be done today. So we're going to quickly start off this video and I'm going to go through what I've learned and what I've been using and some of the effects of these different tools. So let's start with this. This is your typical fiberglass. I put these in order of how you would want to use them when doing body work on a fiberglass body kit like this, or even other types of body work if you wanted to use fiberglass. So you're going to start off with your fiberglass resin and fiberglass sheets. That is going to give you the roughest surface and the most difficult to work with, and so you've got to move from there to either using the Bondo hair, this Bondo glass, which have little particles or larger particles of your cloth there, into a Bondo material that's harder than your traditional Bondo, which we see down on the end. Then you've got your fiberglass resin jelly, which is a really thick, harder version of what you're going to have in the Bondo here, and it's what is mixed in to your fiberglass pieces in these two products here. Now, of course, I am not a professional on this, so if I'm saying something wrong, this is based on my research and what I've noticed while using these products. This is harder to sand than this. This gets harder, and it actually works as a better filler when you're doing larger fills. So Bondo is a very misunderstood product. You do not want to apply this really heavy, and you do not want to overuse the hardener on this. This is supposed to be a softer material that's going to be flexible over time and should be used as a top coat or a small filler. So you want to fill larger holes and stuff according to this direction here. Now, moving on to the sanders, which is going to be one of the heavier focuses on this video. We've got this hand sander here, which I did a review on. I absolutely loved it. It's been incredible for this project. This is what you want to use when you start doing these heavier coats here, because you're not as concerned with the super flat surface. Now, once again, this is a preference of how I'm doing it. You could jump to a block sander right away, and honestly, I see a lot of people do that and it works out really, really well. But for the way that I've been doing it, I found that this works really well. When using this, you want to make sure you continually move unless you're trying to sand down an area that is overfilled. With the block sander, which I'm excited to show you guys how this works, you're going to basically use that as a leveler. So you're going to basically use that across your flatter surfaces or any angles that are larger that you can actually get into with this block sander. So it's not for every single area, and I'll show you guys on the car how I've had to use this compared to this, even on the final stages of sanding. Of course, you got respirators, sandpaper, and so forth. So let's step over to the car and show you guys where I'm at and the processes to this, and then we'll jump through a lot of it, and hopefully I can get a lot of this done and show you guys the final part of this car. Okay, so stepping over to this corner here, I've already went ahead and used the resin jelly to fill a lot of the holes and divots that were created using the Bondo hair or the Bondo glass, and that is because they have pieces of fiberglass in them, and as you sand, they flake off and flick out, and you'll see here, kind of like this here, but much larger. Once you go to the resin, you're still going to get little divot pits, if you see here, and that is just because of the material and how hard it is, and there's spots that might not dry as well, and so forth. Of course, I could be wrong on that, so fill me in on the comments, but I noticed when I was sanding, I'd see little rubbery type pieces fly off, and what I want to do now is get all of those off. I'm going to air dust all this and kind of rub through it, and then we're going to use our Bondo, the actual traditional Bondo material. Now you can see here I've got some divots and misshaped places, and what I'm going to do here is just use my hand to kind of feel those out and try to shape them the best I can, and then I can kind of come in with this block sander, and I'll show you guys that on the other side how this is going to come into play. Same thing here, we're going to start smoothing all this out in the same order that we're going to start doing this side. Now, if you look at this side here, you can see how much more straight these angles are. Now, this block sander can be used just like this to kind of get an idea of where you're at. Like, I want this to be a straight shape like that. If I step over to this side, I can see now I've got a little gap. It's hard to see on the camera, but I got a little gap in between, so I need to fill this more to get that straight angle. Now, stepping over to here, I've already went ahead and added primer to this. I'm going to show you guys fully an example on this door because we want this door to be as straight as possible going this direction. So what you do is you apply whatever color. I like black because it's going to be really easy to see, and I think that's a good color to go with. And then you can take your sander now and just go like this, flat as possible, and you'll start to see your low points. That will allow you to then start filling it and fill higher where these low points are, and then you can keep going back over it. They do sell this in an electric version or air tool version, and I love it because it'll actually go like this, and you can go this direction to really get a nice level surface. So I may be picking one of those up today or tomorrow. I just didn't have time to get down there. I already had this hand one. So let me go ahead and set up now that I explained that all to you. I'm going to spray this down with some primer, and we're going to start our first step of trying to find the low areas, filling it, and smoothing this completely out. So stay tuned, guys. Alright guys, so this is what I did here to give you guys an example of what we're looking for in the outcome. So I basically used the block sander across here, kind of doing a cross pattern. Now, different techniques might work for different people, and I could be wrong a little bit on the techniques, but I know the outcome I was looking for I did get. So I can see low points, slight low points. So when I go to fill this now, again, I kind of know where to hit it a little bit more with the filler. Over here, I'm going to show you guys, I already went ahead and primed this up, and now I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to get this door done. You can see I've got the door already kind of cracked open with a brace down there. I just stuck a tire, and what I'm going to try to do here is kind of go in an S pattern and going like this, heavier S's and maybe a little bit like that, so that we can kind of see where the low areas are compared to the regular part of the door all the way throughout this. That's going to allow me to fill it more. I'm using a very heavy grit sandpaper right now, but when we go to the final sanding, what we're going to be doing is more of a cross hatch pattern like that on the door, so that we can then know exactly where we need to fill, so we can keep going till we get it perfect, so we don't have any type of divots throughout the door. Alright, I'm going to set up, show you guys this kind of in fast motion, speed through some of the filling. I'm going to be using the resin filling first, that resin jelly. Then we're going to be doing the Bondo after that for the final coat to kind of fill in the small little divots and the small little holes or whatever is there because of the fiberglass pieces. Alright, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and get set up. Okay guys, I'm starting to quickly learn that this block sander is absolutely amazing. I thought with the hand sander there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to get the heavier stuff down. So I was kind of going between the hand sander and the hand palm sander and then the block sander. And oh my god, I just stuck with the block sander at the end and got this thing so straight. Now, it's still the first kind of coat on here. I haven't even gone to the traditional Bondo, so you can see there is a lot to still be done. But even check this out. I hit this with the block sander all the way down after filling it with our resin jelly, and wow, it is coming so smooth. So with that said, I was having the biggest issue getting this to be basically a complete angle like we got on this side. And I want them to match up as close as possible. So I just hit this with a heavy amount of very hard the Bondo hair. And now what I'm going to do, speed through, but I'm going to show you guys how I can block sand this with just a hand block. and how fast and how nice it comes out. So stay tuned. So as you guys saw, a lot of block sanding. It was not easy to do this. This is where I really wish I had the air compressor machine, but it's all done to the point where now I'm going to have to add some of the regular Bondo, that traditional Bondo. But I wanted to show you this. So this is the Bondo, not the Bondo glass, but the Bondo hair that's on here. And you'll see blowing it. This is a... So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to blow all this off, wipe it clean, and then we're going to hit it with a thin layer of the traditional Bondo, come around this way to get all these little gaps filled. And then we're going to go with a much lighter sanding. I'm going to do the block sander with a 320 grit, and I'll kind of speed through that. Just wanted to fill you guys in. Everything is coming out really good, and things are going the way that I was hoping. But I'm going to, at the end, kind of go through what worked and what didn't work so you guys can get a better understanding from somebody who's never done body work to this extent and never done a body kit, how I was able to accomplish what I'm hoping to see at the end of this. So stay tuned, guys. So guys, this is how at least I have been mixing the traditional Bondo. Like I said, I am not a professional body person, but I've already done some on the car. It worked out really well, and I've done some research and asked around to other people who know what they're talking about. So what I've been doing is basically making a 3-inch round circle, approximately, of course, about a 1/2 inch high, a little bit more there. So if you look at that, it's about 3 inches wide, 1/2 inch high, and then you want to basically take a single strip of your hardener across the entire thing like that. Now, mixing is very important. You want to get all of the hardener mixed in, but just doing it like this is not going to work. What you want to do is fold and press. Now also, if you have the capability of using wax paper, put that down on the surface that you're doing it on. That'll give you a nice smooth surface, so you're able to mix this a little bit easier. I'm just using a piece of cardboard which has crevices. Sometimes the hardener will go into that, and sometimes you have difficulties getting a full scoop of it once you go to put it on the car. Alright guys, so that's about it. You don't want to add too much hardener. You want it to be a kind of a light pink color like you see here. So let me go head out to the car. I'm going to use this on the body, and then I'll fill you guys in on where we're at and what we're doing. Okay guys, so you can see I got this entire side done with the traditional Bondo, and man, it came out awesome. I'm very excited with the techniques I was coming up with and just the way this was going on. I feel like I've really gotten better at doing this, and I can't wait to show you guys exactly how I did this on this side. So the goal here is, right now, as you can see, I got the trunk off. I want to go ahead and block sand all this completely smooth. And this is going to be our final coat before we do any type of glazing, hopefully, unless we have some areas that are not completely level, then we'll have to add a little bit more Bondo. But I'm pretty sure we got most of this down to exactly the level that we wanted, and now it's just about block sanding. So what I'm going to do is start with a 180 grit on the block sander, and then I'm going to go to, I think, a 320 grit, and that should be good enough to get a really smooth surface. And then if we need to do any extra Bondo on there or the glazing coat, we'll go ahead and do that on top of it. So stay tuned, guys. Also, I figured out the best way to basically grind all this down to be completely level, and I'll show you that as well after we finish all of our block sanding, and then we'll move on to how to fill utilizing that side. And stay tuned. Alright guys, it's a new day and I've got almost this entire side fully block sanded. A quick update, I ended up using 60 grit because any of the higher grits were just not going fast enough, and I'm telling you, this was hours and hours of work doing it by hand. If I had to do it ever again, I would absolutely go and purchase a air compressed one. So that's just a heads up. If you guys are looking to do this quickly, do not do it by hand. But I really enjoyed the experience. And also, when you're doing it by hand, you can really control where you're going so you don't over sand. So with that out of the way, the next step that I was just working on was trying to figure out how to smooth out the heavy scratches. If you look down here where I have not done anything with, you'll see how heavy these scratches are. So what I did was I had some 320 grit sandpaper and put it on the hand palm sander here. You just got to keep moving it really quickly so you don't dig in anywhere. And I realized that the 320 was a little too fine, so now I went ahead and put a, I think it's 100 or 120 grit on there, and I'm going really fast, and that's what I did right here. And you can see it still leaves some scratches, but it gets rid of those really, really deep ones. Now you're gonna see I've got quite a few of these little nicks, little divots, if you look right here, and that's all gonna have to be done with our glazing process. So if I sat there and did it with the Bondo, I'd be going over and over and over again, but this here does need to have more Bondo because it's got a, you can feel it. If you rub your hand across and you can feel it, you will absolutely see it when you go to paint. So make sure you get rid of all of that. So, as promised, what I'm going to do now is walk you through on this side how I laid out that first coat of the traditional Bondo and how I got it on there really nice so that I wasn't doing an insane amount of sanding, even though, like I said, it is a lot to do by hand. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to continue to do this by hand just because I want to finish this project all the way through on this side with a hand sander, that not a air compressed or electric sander that does the block sanding. So it's all going to be hand block sanded. We're going to do the door, which actually should come out really, really nice. And this side part here, I'm going to speed through a lot of it, but I'm going to show you guys how I lay out the traditional Bondo. So the first step is going to be to make sure you blow out all of this, because if there's any of the pieces of fiberglass strands or even like little divots, this is going to blow out any of those loose pieces. So you want to use something, whether you use a soft bristle, kind of a harder bristle brush to kind of scrub it. You want to make sure you're going to remove any of that loose material so that doesn't come loose after you put your final coat of Bondo on. Now after that, I'm going to wipe it down. Normally I'm going to use alcohol, but right now I can't get alcohol from the store, so I am going to use this lacquer thinner. I've already used it on the other side. It seems to be working really well to basically clean everything off before we apply the Bondo. And with the Bondo, you don't want to do too much at a time. So I'm going to basically probably do from here to here, and then from here to here, and then if we need to go down, and then we're going to do the door, most probably split that into 2 or 3 sections. And we're going to use about that 3-inch circle like I showed you guys with the Bondo, because that will basically cover just enough and we won't have any drying issues or anything like that. We'll be able to smoothly transition everything and everything's going to come out really nice. Take your time, don't try to overdo it. I've done that before and it just never turns out right. So stay tuned. I'm going to go ahead and set up the Bondo and I'm going to show you guys how I apply that. Alright guys, so I got this all mixed up and you can see it's a nice light pink. It's very well mixed together. Basically all the gray is blended in. And now I'm just going to start kind of scooping it on, not too heavy, but giving myself a nice area here. As you can see, let me see if I can get this a little bit closer here for you guys. Alright, that's a little bit better. And I'm just getting it on here just so I have enough of our body filler on the surface. Now what I'm going to try to do is smooth this out and get a nice clean thin layer. Make sure I'm covering up any of the low divots that you should have seen while block sanding this the first time. I know up in this area here I needed to get a little more applied. So I'm going to add that. Right now I'm just trying to really get the Bondo covered in all the areas. Now I'm going to start smoothing out what we put on and making sure I don't have any gaps. So This way I can straight block sand this. And kind of get any of the excess off the areas that you know you don't need to get. And like I said, don't try to do too much at once. Even if you have extra Bondo, just leave the areas that you can get on the next run. Otherwise, you're going to run out of time, your Bondo is going to start hardening, and it's not going to smooth out. Alright guys, so this is it. It's all finished up now, and it's pretty much dried too. So you guys got to see me kind of layering it on. I went a little thicker as I started, and as I got down here, I got more used to how it was flowing. And this is a learning process. Like I told you guys, this is the first time I've taken on a job like this, so don't be afraid to start doing these types of things. I'm also doing research as I'm doing these to kind of understand all the different techniques, all the different products you can use for bodywork, and how to get straight lines. And a lot of it is just in the block sanding. So we're going to basically block sand all this. I'm not going to record it because I already showed you guys on the other side how that goes. But I'm going to fill you in on the next step, which is going to be spot puttying. It's something I just did some research on, and I found there's two different types. There's the 2-part and there's a single part. We want to use the 2-part since that'll give us a non-shrinking product as well as a product that dries and hardens. I'll show you guys that right after this. I'm going to basically right now block sand all this, step over to the other side, and we'll start doing our spot puttying, and I'll explain to you what I've learned. But once again, do your own research. If this works for me, I'll show you guys how I did it exactly, and if I learn along the way, I'll fill you guys in as well. So guys, this is the glazing putty we're going to be using. This is the 2-part made by 3M Bondo, and it's number 801. In case you need to pick that up, I got it from AutoZone. It was under 10 bucks. And we also picked up a new set of spreaders because you want to use a brand new one so you don't scrape any particles across your surface. I've already went ahead and did a section because I wanted to kind of get an idea of exactly how I was going to do it so I can explain it to you guys. And testing this area gave me an exact idea of what I want to do. So what I had done here is I spread it all the way across because this is where most of my little divots and little holes were, and I wanted to see if I did that to the whole car, how that would be, and I realized quickly that's not going to happen. This stuff is very thin, it dries very quick, but it's very easy to work with. So what I've decided now after doing this is I want to fill just the certain areas that I find. Then I got this 180 grit. This is a small block sander, and I'm going to block sand everything. I'm going to do it in sections. So I'm going to fill, and then I'm going to block sand, fill, block sand. Then I'm going to block sand the whole car in this 180 grit. Then we're going to hit it with primer so we can get a better idea of any other issues we have, because after you primer it, you can block sand it and you'll see areas that are low lying. So then you can go back and do filling. That's the way to really do it right to get a completely straight car. A lot of people skip all these processes when doing it themselves. I'm learning this as I go, and like I said, Fill me in the comments if there's a better way to do some of these things. I'm just testing things out, watching videos and talking to people, and then kind of combining all that and doing it the way that works best for me. So stay tuned. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how that stuff mixes. We'll spread a little on there, we'll sand it down, and then I'm gonna hit the rest of this car so we can get on to priming. So first off, you want to make sure you have a nice level, clean surface. So this is actually the back of a for sale sign, so it's going to work really well as compared to the cardboard, which I tried to use the first time. You can see here it does not work well for mixing. And then, like I said, you want to make sure you have a very clean spreader so that you don't mix any particles in. This is our standard, basically the glazing putty, and then this is our hardener here. So that's about the amount that I used. I might have even used a little less hardener. Keep in mind, you're going to have to kind of test it out, but you want to use a lot less hardener than you would for any of the other products that we've used. I'm going to go ahead and mix this because it starts to harden quickly. I'm going to set it up over at the car so you guys can see me applying it and see how thin this goes on, because it actually goes on really nicely, but like I said, it's very, very thin, and that's what makes it fill into these small little holes without having any issues. And as you guys can see, it's already hardened. So I probably used a little bit more hardener than I needed, but I was able to get that on there nice and easily. So I'm going to go ahead now, set up the block sanding and block sand all that off to get rid of all the excess Bondo. So guys, I'm basically done block sanding this entire thing, and it is coming out really, really good. The glazing coat really helped out a lot in some of these areas where there were divots and pits. I have a few other things still left to do, very minor sanding, but I wanted to show you guys this. This is what I use to get along these edges. So if you look here, basically some of the Bondo and everything gets up against the chrome area, and I taped all that off before starting. The easiest way to get this smoothed out is just take a grinding wheel with a Dremel, very, very carefully try to keep it as straight as possible, and go along here. Now, I'm not going to show you that on this side because I had already done it. All I'm going to do is basically clean that up, but I'll show you guys on the other side once we get to that, probably on the next episode, finishing up a lot of things. This episode, I really, really want to get this whole thing completely cleaned down. I'm going to get the hose out, wash it all down. I'm going to tape up all the windows, and then we're going to basically hit it with some primer, so then we can go back once again and block sand it and see if there's any low areas that we need to fill. And I'm hoping this whole thing is super smooth, because that would be amazing. It'd be very minimal body work after that, in this area at least, to finish this car off. So stay tuned. I'm going to go ahead, wash it all down, and then I'll show you guys me priming it up, and then I'll finish off the video. Well guys, I got the primer on there and it is looking awesome, but as you can see, this primer is going to reveal all of the little scratches, all the little imperfections here. So you've got some bubbles that were created from the fiberglass basically having air pockets. So what this allows us to do now is kind of come along here. Now I left this area on filled with the glazing putty just to kind of give you an idea of how it would look before using the glazing putty. And you can see here too, I've got some bubbles. So the benefit of doing this primer on this whole area allows us now to go through and see the imperfections, see where we need to remove scratches, and the next step on this side at least is going to be doing probably another light skim coat of our Bondo in some of the areas to get that really smooth, and then coming down on our sandpaper level. So we're basically going to keep block sanding it until we get those light scratches out. And then on the next episode, this will all be finished. I'll have all this finished off, this side, the door and everything. I'll have that hit with primer too, and we'll walk you guys through how we're going to take out a lot of these imperfections. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. This is an insane amount of work. This is way beyond what I originally expected, but I am so thrilled with the fact that I'm able to do this. You guys are able to do it along with me, and hopefully you guys are learning as I learn. And if you already know a lot of these techniques and there's something I'm doing wrong, do not hesitate to let me know in the comments. This is all a learning process for me, but it's also a skill that comes with time. So I know that the more I do this, the better it's gonna be, the more I'm gonna learn. You guys have an awesome day, a blessed week. Stay safe out there. I know there's a lot going on, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks again.